Okay, everybody in now.
Are we going?
Yep.
The access is via emergency exit number 2, past a machine gun nest and into the main access tunnel which leads down from the Berghof. From here, the tour continues via Section B, with the bunker rooms for the employees and the technical rooms, to the unfinished Section C, through which a connection with the SS tunnel system and the Platterhof bunker was planned. You go first, or next to the camera, okay? Let's go. The access is via emergency exit number 2, past a machine gun nest and into the main access tunnel which leads down from the Berghof. Above us is a grated air shaft, which should guarantee fresh air with closed doors.
Sicherzustellen, dass also die Luft in den Bunker gelangt.
In some distance in front of us, we already see the first machine gun stand and a U-shaped bumper arrangement.
Boden. Okay.
We're now moving out of the bumper again. Above us, the inlet for the central air supply, not only secured by a thin, close-meshed grating, but also by a very massive iron grating to prevent possible intruders such as paratroopers who wanted to make access to the bunker from below impossible, because the main air shafts are located 8 to 10 meters below us. Everything was very well secured.
Durchbrechen und so von unten her in das Stollensystem eindringen. Es war also ziemlich sicher. Hier betreten wir den Hauptgang.
Here we enter the main corridor, which leads down from the Berghof by a staircase to the main bunker. The side access to this emergency exit here was protected by massive iron doors. Here we see the stairs leading to the Berghof. The 65 steps are made of marble.
Der Berghof-Bunker war der erste der Bunkeranlagen, die gebaut worden ist. Ganz am Anfang hat man also noch nicht.
The Berghof bunker was one of the first to be built. In the early construction, only one machine gun shaft was installed. In later bunker constructions, there were two. The machine gun shaft was installed at chest height. However, there was enough space for a second machine gun shaft. And in case of a load jam or fire from outside, the installation of a second machine gun was necessary. Therefore, 2 MG shooting shafts were installed in all other bunker buildings on the Obersalzberg.
Sieht man nichts, gell?
Ja, das sieht man drin noch besser.
Okay, und weiter.
In this part of the bunker, there are numerous inscriptions on the walls drawn by American soldiers and officers who immortalized themselves here in 1945 after the invasion of Berchtesgaden. We are now entering the gas lock. On the right is the entrance to a decontamination room, which is, in this case, relatively far from the gas lock. Another security door is again the access into a decontamination room. Here, the remains of a bathtub to wash the body in case of a gas attack.
Good.
Okay, that was the entrance to the machine gun. Oh, yeah.
Ja. Achso, da geht dann das weiter. Wie das kriege ich ab, da fahren wir so und gehen wir so um.
At this point, the wall was open because it was suspected there might be hidden tunnels behind it.
Dass da hinten vielleicht geheime Stollen noch sind.
Bisschen mehr am Boden. Was war denn das da, Flo? Ein bisschen nach rechts, bitte.
Jetzt beim Vormann ein, die kann ich mal
Ein bisschen nach oben. Gut. Und jetzt schwenkt nach links leicht.
In diesen Räumen waren ja sehr viele Luftschutzgegenstände.
In this room, medical preparations and objects for treatment after possible gas attacks were stored. Initial treatments would be carried out in this room. Here is the gas lock through which we now enter the main bunker.
Und hier dann der Zugang in den sogenannten Bauteil B. Bauteil A war ja Weihnachten schon fertig.
Warte mal, da rechts der Beutel dahin. Da
Das ist nochmal der Zugang in die Gasschleuse.
Ein bisschen nach links. Jawohl, so. Okay.
Bauteil B war vorwiegend fürs Personal und für Nachrichten.
This part of the bunker was primarily intended to house the Berghof staff, along with the intelligence service. This cavern was a kitchen. It was the biggest kitchen of the entire bunker systems on the Obersalzberg. In the background, you can still see the foundations of a refrigerator. This extractor was made by the Siemens Company and had an hourly air circulation capacity of 680 cubic meters. It was in operation for about 3.8 hours per day.
680 ZTI und war durchschnittlich 3,8 Stunden am Tag eingeschaltet.
Da oben vielleicht auch nochmal, dass wir von da im Echo fangen und aufgeschwenken. Jetzt.
Weiter in Richtung Platterhof im Bauteil B.
We continue in section B toward Platterhof. Here we have the so-called archive cavern on the right. The special feature of this cavern was the second steel door because Hitler's archive was kept here. Hitler's record collection, his personal documents, his manuscripts and speeches were stored here. This door is exactly the same as the door shown in the documentary 101st Airborne Division, First Inspection of Hitler's Bunker. You can also view this documentation on our channel. Here on the right was the shelf where the records were stored. In addition, small fragments of the shellac records can still be found on the floor today.
So these were all records here, but paper records.
The lamp a little deeper, please. Good. Here was the telephone switchboard of the Berghof bunker, installed, which in terms of dimensions and line cross-section was somewhat larger than that in the Bormann bunker. The Obersalzberg had 800 telephone connections, and from each one, you could call all over Germany. There were also direct lines to Berlin and the most important government offices in Germany. In this cavern is a remarkably dry room climate, as seen from the very well-preserved wooden door frames.
Nach links. Gut.
This was the battery room with its own ventilation. Here, the big batteries for the telephone exchange were stored. Acid batteries were used, and the gas from the batteries was pressed out through the gas lock. Here, through these round shafts, the gas was discharged to the outside. In contrast to the residence and living caverns, clinker tiles were installed on the floor here.
Also hier sehen wir mal sehr gut, wie der Berg eigentlich arbeitet.
We can see very well how the mountain is in motion. The mountain works elliptically, so the greatest pressure does not come from above, but from the side. The ground foundation can withstand the pressure, but above, the side walls give way to the pressure. This kind of damage only occurs in the Berghof bunker and in only one cavern of the Bormann bunker. The reason for this lies in an earth warpage that was formed millions of years ago. The ground in the area of this earth warpage is interspersed with thick layers of clay, which causes the mountain's shifting movements.
Und eine gewisse Hangbewegung und ein gewisser Bergdruck herrscht hier ausnahmsweise vor.
Here was the cavern of the Berghof staff. The floors were covered with parquet flooring, which was taken by looters after the war. This cavern is the driest on the entire Obersalzberg. You can see this clearly on the walls and on the wood chips on the floor. The wood chips were used as a leveling material under the wooden floor.
Holzspäne unter dem verlegten Boden einfach liegen lassen haben. Nach dem Krieg ist dieser Boden wieder gestohlen worden von Plünderern und daher liegt jetzt hier wieder dieses Holzmaterial.
Here was the location of a wash basin for the staff. Interesting about this room is also the fact that the electrical distribution boxes are almost undamaged. Most of these junction boxes in other bunkers have either been stolen or are heavily rusted. An American soldier immortalized himself here in 1945. These are the remains of the parquet floor. This is proof that parquet flooring was installed in this part of the bunker. This cavern was used by direct employees of Hitler. However, this is not 100% certain and cannot be traced today. Anyway, it was used as a residential cavern, because on the walls you can still see the remains of wooden paneling. Here is the end of Section B of the Berghof bunker, and the transition to the unfinished Section C. To the left, the ladies' and men's rooms toilets. Below the ceiling again, the compensation flap for the possible pressure wave during bombing and the transition to the other bunker part. This is the underground access to the machine gun nests. In this part of the bunker, no decontamination chambers had been installed since the corridor does not lead into the open, but into the bunker system of the Platterhof. It was planned to compensate for the different levels with the shaft and stairs. However, this construction measure did not come to fruition.
Nach links abgezweigt, ist aber nicht mehr fertiggestellt worden.
Here you can still see the remains of the building material, and in the background, the rough rock excavation.
Du bist voll auf Streu, oder?
Das ist voll Spot, ja.
Mhm. Spot oder Streu? Streu.
Streu, Flut.
The width of this tunnel is greater. Oh, and when they, of course, they were saying you can brick it in and so forth, yeah.
Nach links ein bisschen.
And they
Und nach oben.
concrete from above. How did they do that? Well, this
Und rechts rum.
oh, I see, yeah. Well, why do they continue building? Going. So there's the way the bricks started. They only got that far. Yes. Yeah.
Dann mal die Lampen mit rein.
See, that's where the width,
So, genau.
three widths of brick in there.
Here, at a lower level, the supply tunnel.
Hier der Versorgungsstollen. Erkehrt, ruhig. Müssen wir jetzt schauen, wo der Eingang ist von dem Brief. Da ist er. Sagst du?
Los?
Dieses unfertigen Zugangs ist der Beweis dafür, dass
This machine gun nest is proof that a connection from the SS tunnel system to Hitler's bunker should be built.
Maschinengewehranlage haben.
Machine gun nests were always laid out, so the direction of fire was in the direction from which intruders could enter the bunker system. The way this bunker was constructed clearly shows that work was carried out under great time pressure. There was already a shortage of materials, and the workers no longer had the same qualifications as the workers at the beginning of the construction work. The number of foreign workers was already over 70%. We are now at the immediate transition to the unfinished construction phase. Work here continued until the end of the war. Halfway up this shaft in front of us was another horizontal supply shaft. The excavated material was transported up to the surface next to the SS crew building through this supply shaft. The shaft here in front of us, which reaches up to the Platterhof bunker, was filled with material by the Americans so the hotel guests of the Platterhof, who occasionally broke into the Platterhof bunker, could not climb down into the Berghof bunker.
Hier nicht runtersteigen.
That was in the 1960s.
Das schwenkt dann halt andere Richtung.
60 feet below.
Jetzt machen wir direkt mal da oben.
More than that. More than that.
Und dann nach rechts rüber.
Now we will know soon exactly how many feet because we're going to survey this.
Jetzt schon hin. Vielleicht mit daher, das sind Seile.
In this unfinished part of the bunker,
Links rum.
we come across building materials and tools. Everything points to a sudden termination of the construction work.
Vielleicht mal daher. So, und das auf. Und wieder runter. Nochmal dahinter. Und oben am Boden zu uns langsam. Ja.
Here we make a small detour to the supply tunnels. These low tunnels, below the actual bunker tunnels, were used to supply the bunker facilities. Water pipes, sewers, electricity, ventilation, and heating pipes were laid here.
Das ist wahrscheinlich ein Gang zur anderen Drehstellung.
This so-called undercut also provided access to the machine gun nests. We have now gone through sections B and C and go back to section A, the core area of the Obersalzberg bunker facilities with the private rooms of Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun.
Jetzt gehen wir also vom Hauptzugang des Bunkers von der Gasschleuse aus nach rechts.
We now go from the main entrance, which descends from the Berghof, into section A, which leads to the Hotel zum Türken. This is the so-called pre-bunker. And here, the first cavern on the left was intended for the Berghof's property management. Later, the house administrators were assigned a cavern in section B, which we have already seen. Directly opposite is the cavern of Hitler's servant. This unusual arrangement of opposite caverns was only carried out in the first construction phase in section A. Later, the arrangements were always staggered. Here, a direct bell line has been installed in Hitler's private rooms. This line is described in the supply tunnel below us. This is the absolute central area of the Obersalzberg bunker complex, with the private rooms of Hitler and Eva Braun. But before we get into this area on the left side again, the arrangement of a ladies' and men's toilet. Hitler and Eva Braun had their own toilets in their compartments. And here, a wooden door separated the private bunker area of Hitler and Eva Braun. The first cavern on the right was Hitler's cavern, with the unlucky number 13 left. Immediately adjacent to the anteroom is the living room and then the bedroom at the back. Next to the bedroom was the bathroom with toilet. The reason the doors are bricked up here is easy to explain. In the years after the war, it was still possible to get to the bunker of the Berghof via the bunker of the Hotel Türken. The bunker visitors of the Hotel Türken repeatedly broke tiles from Hitler's bathroom as souvenirs from the walls. As a result, the entrances to the bath were bricked up and made impassable. Later property surveying revealed clear boundaries between the Hotel Türken bunker and the Berghof bunker.
Geht schon, Flo?
Dann gehen wir in den nächsten Raum links.
Then we go into the next room on the left.
Warten wir da die Zahl.
Das hier war das Operationszimmer.
This was the medical treatment room. Hitler was always very anxious about his health and wanted to be prepared for anything. So here was Dr. Beierl, Hitler's personal physician, with his exam room. The second room was the operating room. The color of the door frames, this greenish white, was also used in hospitals at the time. Secondly, the installation of a large medical wash basin for storing and cleaning medical instruments. The oversized wash basins were hung on these special brackets.
Instrumente reinigen und so weiter. Die waren also speziell aufgehängt mit diesen Eisenhaken.
Yes.
Dentistry and surgery.
Nach links schwenken.
Hier haben wir die Kaverne von Eva Braun.
Here now, the cavern of Eva Braun. The living and sleeping room size is identical to Hitler's, but she had a larger bathroom. Here is a comparison of how the U.S. soldiers found the private rooms of Eva Braun in Hitler's bunker in May 1945, and how the same rooms look today. As already mentioned, you can watch this complete footage of the first bunker inspection of the war correspondents of the 101st Airborne Division also on our channel. Since building material was very limited after the war, the looters took everything useful from the bombed houses as well as from the bunkers of the Obersalzberg. As you can see here, the partition wall between the bedroom and the bathroom was completely removed. This was the private domain of Hitler's personal physician, Professor Morell. These rooms are among the most waterlogged in the entire bunker. We now come to the last cavern in Hitler's private bunker. It is the cavern of the SS Leibstandarte and the house staff. Until completing Section B, this was the so-called air raid shelter room, where benches and tables were placed. During an air raid, the personnel could stay here.
Schutzraum mit Bänken und Tischen, sich aufhalten konnte während des Bombenangriffs.
Behind this door is only another decontamination room and an air raid shelter for the escort command. Immediately behind it on the left is the turnoff to emergency exit 1, the dog kennel for Hitler's favorite dog Blondie, and on the right, the connecting corridor to the bunker of the Hotel Turken. Here ends our guided tour through Hitler's bunker, and we go back to emergency exit 2, through which we entered.
Can I film you a little bit talking about it?
Yes. Come here, you too, you're my co-op.
Geh ein bisschen weiter zurück.
I'm sorry, das weißt du.
Well, the point of it is talk first about Hitler's assumed identity with Berchtesgaden and Obersalzberg, and then you get into the political center, you know, during the 30s as the Hitler's prominence, and then during the war it becomes the fortress and ultimately the myth of the national redoubt. And my colleague here, Mr. Siren, is writing about the American occupation.
So consequently, we'll be covering about 60 years of the region's history.
Of the Obersalzberg.
How many times have you been here?
5. Well, I've been here 5 times, but Joseph grew up here.
I had the good fortune of having a father stationed here in the late 50s and 60s. So I had a child's memoirs of this region at that time. But we've been back a number of times since.
What do you think is it that makes the Obersalzberg such a interesting place that a lot of people can't explain why, but they absolutely want to find out everything about this mountain, and they walk around in the forest here and they come at weird hours of the day and they travel thousands of miles just to see this mountain where actually not much can be found anymore?
I think it's the incongruence between the extraordinary scenic beauty and the rather heinous historical imagery. So you have this extraordinary conflict between scenery and history.
It's the unique personality of Hitler, too. It seems almost unfathomable to try to get to the bottom of it. So you get a sense of that mystique by being here, you know, and the person and the place go together.